Good morning. Thank you for being here. Sorry I'm late. This week I have our two sons, visiting here in Palm Springs because, it was my wife's milestone birthday on March the 1st, and the boys couldn't be here for various reasons, and so they decided they would come. So we're having a lot of fun. Of course, we have a great big late breakfast, and everyone's cooking up something different and sitting there and chatting, and all of a sudden I had to scramble off here to have my session. But I want to talk today about confidence, because again, when I think about what to talk about here as we're proceeding in our 90-day challenge, we're trying to achieve a breakthrough, and of course there's a lot of pressure to stay with the commitment. So I committed to try to make a breakthrough in both Persian and Arabic. And of course, with the kids visiting, I don't have much time to study either Arabic or Farsi, Persian. And so the question is, how much are you going to lose, or how do you find the time, and is this going to affect, my, success and stuff like that. And I began, so anyway, I had to jump in the car because we had no more milk and eggs. So I jumped in the car to go to the store. I put on my Arabic. I've been away from it for a couple of days, and I listen to it and I understand in some ways more. I hear things that I didn't hear before, and somehow I have this confidence that I will eventually. There is no question in my mind that I will learn Arabic, however long it takes. So it doesn't matter. Obviously, not everyone is in that position. Some people are in a hurry to learn the language because they need it for work. But, there is no end point in learning languages. Even if you speak English well and you use it for work, you can always improve. Turn the microphone on. Boy, I mean, that's awful that they would suddenly interrupt our connection and ask me to confirm my password. Boy, that is just terrible. Are we live here? I don't know whether I'm still getting people here. There he is. Oh, you're back. Okay, I'm back. Yeah, so that's pretty bad. They just cut you off in the middle of your Google Hangout and ask you to confirm your password. Unbelievable. No, is this up? Okay, so I have this confidence. I'm assuming everything is okay right now. What are we seeing here? Oh, yeah, you're back. There he is. Okay. So, I have this confidence that I will eventually speak Arabic. I will eventually, as I listen to my Al Jazeera podcast, and I don't understand more than 20%, although I pick up phrases here and there. I'm confident that I will learn. I just have to stay with it. So there's no end point. So that's what I was saying. So if you're working and you're using a language, whatever it might be in your work, you can always improve. So there is no end point. And I just know that if I put in the time, I will eventually get better and better and better. I have that confidence. There is no way I will not learn this language. The same is true with my Persian. So I hadn't spoken any or done any or listened to any Persian, and then I had committed to, with my tutor at LingQ once a week, that we chat. So I show up, and actually I didn't do so badly. I was looking for words, but I was communicating. And so here again, I know that if I continue, and in fact, I'm looking forward to spending more and more time with Persian and with Arabic, but maybe over the next coming years, because as I said, I'm going to Ukraine in May, And so I want to work on improving my Slavic languages. And then I'm going to Japan in the fall, so I want to work on my Korean. Arabic and Persian aren't going anywhere as languages. Whatever I put into them is, I still have it. I have the lessons that I have studied, and there will be more material that I can use. So I am confident. In fact, I'm looking forward to enjoying all of these languages. I'm confident that I will get there. I'm confident that it's something I want to do. Like sometimes we're in this situation, like, why am I learning this language? Why am I not doing something else? So that this is, and it's so easy to be distracted today, you know, and you have to believe, you have to be confident that this is something worth doing. And of course, I enjoy doing it. And I'm confident that I will get there. I am confident as well that this approach, listening and reading with the occasional review of words, the occasional review of grammar, essentially what we do at LingQ, and I enjoy the environment at LingQ. Other people might have other environments that they enjoy, but I'm confident that it will take me to success. So the confidence that I think about is never confidence that I will speak well, because it doesn't matter. However well I speak is well enough. I'm never in a situation where I'm worried about how I will do, because however well I do, that's all I can't really control it. And yet, so even when I spoke with my Persian tutor, I struggled, but still 3 months ago, I couldn't say anything in Persian. So now we can actually have a bit of a conversation. So that's good. It doesn't bother me that I was struggling to find words. So the confidence, to me, the important confidence is the confidence that it's worth doing, worth learning the language. You will eventually achieve success. The method that you're using is the one you want to be using. So you're confident about what you are doing. And to me, that's the most important. It's like, say, in LingQ, we measure people's level of activity. To what extent are people engaged with the language, listening, reading, how many words read, how many links created, how many words that have become known. This is more than anything an indication of your level of activity. If you put the activity in, you will improve. So, you know, it's enough to be confident that you're doing something that's worthwhile, that is going to work for you, that you can achieve success, you stay active with the language, and the results will look after themselves. Some people may be better at retaining vocabulary. Some people may be better at pronunciation. It doesn't really matter. It's the commitment to what you're doing, the confidence that it's worth doing, and then it's going to lead you to success. And therefore you stay active, you stay engaged with the language. To me, that's important. And after that, the results will look after themselves. So that's what I wanted to say about confidence. And similarly, so if I go a few days now where I can't get at my language learning because I have my kids visiting and we're doing a bunch of stuff together, yeah, that happens. And it's going to happen, I'm sure, to many of you in your 90-day challenge. There will be a couple of days when you can't stay with the program. Doesn't matter. When you get back to it, you'll pick it up very quickly. You won't lose, you won't slip very much. As long as you're committing for the bulk of the 90-day period to really go at it to achieve a breakthrough. So that's all I wanted to say. And I'm curious to see what sorts of questions we have. All right. We are going to go bing, 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 bing. Go to the top here. Blah, blah, blah. Salam alaikum. Hello. Blah, 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 blah. So, blah, blah. I love your work. Thank you. It's all black. Yeah, I don't know. Shukran jazilan. Mashallah. Okay, but how many words of reading per day do you suggest? I mean, we do have some targets at LingQ. I must say that I use the sort of words of reading and the links and stuff like that more as a record of what I have done to confirm to myself that I am being active and therefore I will eventually get to my goal. So even when I think I'm not making progress, I look at how many words I have read, I look at how many words I now know, and I am confident that that's going to bring me to my goal. I am improving, even though there are many days where I don't feel that I'm improving. So there are many days that you lack the confidence that all your effort is actually getting you anywhere. And so that's how I look at our statistics, as a record of what I have done, the distance that I have traveled. I don't necessarily set myself a goal of how many words I want to read that day, because I just simply do what I feel like doing. If I do more listening some days or do more reading some days, so be it. You know, people often ask me how many languages do I speak? So very briefly, 10 that I can turn on now with varying degrees of fluency, and 10 that I would have to warm up before I could really communicate. And so particularly now the 19th and 20th, Arabic and Persian, but I can carry on a very limited conversation, and there are things that I understand and things that I don't understand. So I'm, to varying degrees, no 20. To varying degrees, I can speak certainly 10 without too much difficulty, and another 10 with much more difficulty. What do you suggest? Some people are always in a hurry. My cousin has to take some exams. Okay, yeah, obviously if you have to take exams, but the basic methodology, in my opinion, is still listening and reading. Listening, because listening comprehension is key. Listening is, what you're doing in the listening and reading is you are bringing in this sort of structure of a new language. You are bombarding your brain with a new language experience, because the brain, in the case of Giovanni, I presume your cousin is an Italian, his brain is structured for the Italian language. The way the Italian language expresses things is standard, hardwired in his brain. That works. So now you come with this other way, English or whatever language. Now there's another way of expressing these things, new sounds, new phrases, new structures. So you have to push that. You have to start to give the brain a chance to form a separate control center for a different language. And the first foreign language is the most difficult, because your brain is relatively inflexible, because it's so used to your native language. By the third or fourth or fifth language, the brain is now more flexible. There are all these different sounds and different ways of saying things, and so the brain is a little more receptive. But for the first language, it's tough. So it's intensive exposure to the language. Now, while you are, listening a lot and reading a lot, naturally you notice certain things that seem strange to you in the new language. Might be English, because we don't say that in Italian. We just say this some other way. So then you may want to look something up in grammar. But I would advise your cousin, Giovanni, not to spend too much time trying to memorize grammar rules. Probably that won't be very helpful. Won't be able to remember them. What you need to do is get massive exposure. So in the case of your cousin, step it up. Turn up, if it's Italian, that is his mother tongue. Don't listen to any Italian. Don't read any Italian. Read English, listen to English. Use LingQ, look up words. You gotta, if you're listening and you can't understand, you gotta get at the text somehow. Just step it up is all I would do. I'd occasionally refer, have a small grammar book that you flip through. It reminds you of certain things. It does have some benefit, but you can't try to memorize those things. Okay, here we have the biggest conundrum for many is this: how to speak in a foreign language as well as we write. Yeah, obviously, when we are speaking, it's more difficult than when we write, because when we write, we have time. We have time to think. But I think when we're learning a language, speaking and writing is more or less the same. In other words, we aren't going to write some super eloquent academic prose. We'll probably write much the way we speak. So the two are connected. And in order to speak well and to develop the ability to, on the fly, come up with the words that you need, you simply have to speak a lot. So you step up your input, step up your listening and reading, but you also have to find opportunities to speak more. So that might mean hiring online tutors or trying to find people in your community that you can talk to. Okay. Oh, Giovanni, Spanish. Well, if Giovanni, Spanish. Again, I don't know, Giovanni, if Spanish is the native language or Spanish is the language that is being learned here. Maybe you can tell me. Okay. Steve, you always say 3 keys are motivation, time, and noticing. How do we keep motivation? Motivation comes from confidence. I mean, the motivation comes from within, but to maintain that motivation, it's helpful to find something in the culture of the language that you're learning that you find interesting, that you're curious about. So you don't have to like all aspects of the culture, but you want to try to find something. So you got to look for things of interest, whether it be songs or books or newspaper articles, or if you have a friend in the language, you have to find something there that's attractive. I find those kinds of things are motivating. Personally, I enjoy discovering a new language. I enjoy discovering how they say things in Arabic versus Persian versus other languages. Okay. I've been learning Persian for 6 months and can't have a conversation. How many lessons have you had in 3 months? I'd have to look up my, I would have to look up, I will tell you exactly. Let's just, now, let me just say to Bella and the Sky, I have started having conversations in Persian much earlier than I have done, certainly than I did in, for example, Czech. Even though I had studied Russian for quite a few years. And so therefore I had a lot of vocabulary, a sense of the grammar. And Czech is written in the Latin alphabet, so therefore Czech should be much easier. But I started speaking earlier in Persian. And to me, the reason is simply the mini stories. So the mini stories at LingQ are a phenomenal way to build up your ability to speak, because they are focused on the most common verbs in the language, and there's lots of repetition. And so I would very much recommend that you use the mini stories. Now, I am going to share my screen in order to show you. Okay, screen share. And we go here. Hopefully this is start screen share and present to everyone. Okay, I guess you can see my screen here. And conversation reports. So I have 26. That's the quick answer. 26 conversation reports. And just to give you an example oh, you know what? I'll tell you. So it goes back to August 20th. August 20th, 21st, 30th, 6th, 7th. These are all the conversation reports that I've had. Now, I'm going to show you something. Wait a second here. Yeah, I'm talking with someone in Ukraine about maybe having a session there, but where are we? Where did she go? Oh, I know where I can find her. If I go to my tutors, and if I go to my activities, then I have conversation report received. I have not yet opened this conversation report. And so what do we see here? View report. So, oh, this is my Arabic guy. No, I don't want him. Where Monday the 8th, where's Rana? Oh, this is the one, sorry. View report. Okay, so these are all of the words that I tried to use in my conversation in Persian. She even has some audio. I'm going to give her 5 stars, and I'm going to import it. So now I have a lesson which Rana has also recorded.
وقتی جشن تولد برای زنم گرفتم پسرامون نمیتونستن بیان.
Okay, جشن تولد is a birthday.
وقت گذروندن.
Anyway, so I mean, I can talk about the fact that we have my sons visiting Pesaram, you know, and all this kind of stuff. I can have a simple conversation. Stop that, and we are now back here. So the answer is I have had 26 conversations, mostly in the last 3 months. And so that's that. Greetings again from Puerto Rico. Regarding learning Chinese idioms and their usage, what are your thoughts? Should they become sort of priority? I am not a big fan. Like when you say idioms, I don't know if you're referring to Xiangshan, to Chengyu, for example. The Changyu are these sort of elegant little four-character expressions in Chinese, which are sort of a sign of some sophistication. And to some extent, all Chinese people, or many Chinese people, know a lot of them. Some are rarer than others. I think, you know, they're sort of an adornment on your Chinese. They're not so crucial. I think you need to learn the basic structure of the language, the most frequent verbs, say things that you need to say. And at some point later on, you will find that having heard many of these Changyu, you'll start using them. And people will be very impressed. The Chinese native speakers will go, wow. And so it's a bit of a show-off thing. I don't think they're crucial. I tried your book on LingQ, and I noticed your best languages are the ones you learned first: French, Spanish, Chinese. Now, wouldn't you like to get one of the newer ones to that level? Yeah, I mean, the languages I speak the best are the ones that I've spoken the most. And so the order actually isn't French, Spanish, Chinese, and Japanese. It's French, Japanese, Chinese, and Spanish. That's the order in which I speak them, because that's the amount that I've spoken in those languages. I speak German or Swedish fairly freely, but I have a much larger vocabulary in Russian than I have in German or Swedish, because I have done so much listening and reading in Russian, for example. Would I like to be able to speak Russian as well as Spanish or Chinese? I'd love to, but you know, you can only do so much. Like, it's the conundrum is, am I going to spend? I would love to improve my Japanese. I speak Japanese quite well, but I would love to improve it. I have trouble reading novels in Japanese. There's a bunch of vocabulary that I don't have. Sure, I'd love to do that. I've only got so many hours in the day. So would I love to, improve my Russian, or do I want to learn Persian? That's the conundrum. Now, I'm working on Arabic and Persian right now, but I am going to Ukraine for 2 weeks, and I'm going to be in Eastern Ukraine, so I presume, and Kiev, but also in Lviv. So I will be speaking both Russian and Ukrainian, and by being able to speak it more, I'll get better at it. But I think, I lived in France for 3 years. I lived in Japan for 9 years. Chinese, I studied it full-time for a year. And I have Chinese friends in Vancouver. Spanish, I did a lot of hitchhiking in Spain when I was young. So I had lots of opportunity to speak. Okay, Scott says, I think motivation comes from curiosity and fun. I agree. What exactly is the 90-day challenge? Okay, the 90-day challenge is what we do at LingQ, because, it comes back to this issue of motivation. Obviously, if we are independent learners, we're learning on our own. There are times when our motivation lags. I don't feel like studying today. And then the next day and the next day. And pretty soon you lose that habit, because habit is important in any activity, whether it be working out in the gym, it's habit, right? So what we do with the 90-day challenge is we say to all of our members, look, let's have a 90-day challenge. We're all going to make a special effort to study, if possible, every day, for whatever it is. And that might consist of an hour of listening, which is easy to fit in, and a half hour of reading and reviewing links, whatever. It'll vary from person to person, but everyone senses that we are together in this 90-day challenge, and LingQ can measure if you're active every day. So you want to maintain that streak. And we know from experience that if you make a special effort during a 90-day period, you are more likely to take, another step in the language. Doesn't necessarily mean fluency, but a bit of a breakthrough. Plus, you'll develop some habits. So it's basically a way of getting a group of us LingQ members to commit to a 90-day period of extra effort. For example, I am putting in more time right now. Granted, I'm doing 2 languages, and there are days when I don't feel like doing it, but I say, I'm committed to this 90-day challenge, therefore I got to do something. So that's essentially what the 90-day challenge is. Okay, Masashi asks, what made you enter the lumber industry from being a diplomat? So I was at the Canadian Embassy in Tokyo. I was there for 4 years, first 2 years, and I was what we call a trade commissioner. So my job as a trade commissioner is to be aware of issues that affect trade between Canada and, in this case, Japan, and also to help Canadian industry penetrate the Japanese market. So for the first 2 years, I was on agriculture and foods, and the second 2 years, I was involved with the lumber industry. And of course, because I speak or spoke Japanese, I got to know a lot of people in the industry, a lot of people sort of what we call downstream. In other words, in Japan, you had this sort of traditional trading company, but then you had people, you know, the next level in the distribution chain. I got to know a lot of those people. And so there was a Canadian company based out of Vancouver that wanted to set up their own office in Tokyo. And since I spoke Japanese and knew the industry, they approached me and said, would you like to work for us and no longer, therefore, work for the Canadian government? And I said, yes. And so then I stayed on in Japan for another 3 years. The reason I left the diplomatic service is that I found it not so satisfying. You work for government, you produce a bunch of reports, or I'm helping other people. Maybe, you know, I help a businessman make connections to a Japanese counterpart, and then he doesn't follow up, and so that all amounts to nothing. And it wasn't all that satisfying. Whereas working for a company, we had specific goals we wanted to achieve. It was more measurable. It was fun. So I made the move. I have a question. Do you have any strategies on approaching new writing systems? It's really hard for me to read Japanese fluently. I still have to translate in my head. Greetings from Chile. You know, first of all, if it's the Japanese writing system, of course, there's the kana, hiragana, katakana, and then there's the kanji, the Chinese characters. Hiragana, katakana is not difficult. There's 50 symbols. There's syllables, kaki, ku, ke, ko, and there's sort of parallel. Hiragana for most of the words, and katakana for loan words or words that sound, you know, like crash or whatever. I mean, there it's just a matter of learning the symbols, which is not a lot of work. And then the more you read, the better you get. You just have to get used to them. It's like learning Arabic or Cyrillic. It's you learn the symbols, and then at first it seems impossible, and then you start reading more and more, and you continue to make the same mistakes, and you think it's, or you see a word and you jump to certain conclusions that you think is this and it's something else, and just a gradual process. The more you read, the better you get. With the kanji, with the Chinese characters, that's the same is true, that you have to just, the more you read, the better you get, but you have to make a special effort to learn the kanji. And I had a system. There are many systems out there. You got to find something, put in the effort every day, half an hour to learn the kanji. That's with Chinese, and with Japanese, that's an additional task that you have to get at. And once you do that, then there's no reading. The more you read, the better you get. And I like it if you can listen and then read, then you have a bit of momentum in your reading. Okay, what do you think about shadowing? And please advise how to use it right away. My new language center in Kazakhstan. Yes, Yerdos. First of all, Kazakhstan, like I am going to learn Turkish, and I'm very curious to know to what extent Kazakh is different from Turkish, but that's in the future. Shadowing. Now, shadowing is something that I don't do. There's a man called Professor Argelles, Arguelles. If you look up shadowing, you'll probably find him. I think he is sort of the expert on shadowing. My understanding of shadowing is that you listen to something, and as you listen to it, you repeat it. As you listen to it, you repeat it. And so it's helping you get the flavor, the intonation of the language. I find it, I've tried doing it. I find it difficult to continue doing it. Most of my listening is while cleaning up in the kitchen, driving and stuff like that. And I just listen. And I listen with the goal of then reading in order to figure out what the meaning was. I think it is important to get the intonation of the language. We can do it by shadowing. We can also do it without shadowing. So we could have a paragraph in front of us or a sentence, listen to it, and then read it, trying to imitate the intonation. Or we can sporadically, as we're listening to something, and I do this, sporadically I hear something and I repeat it. So I think shadowing just means that, but I could be wrong, and therefore I suggest you Google. And in particular, I think Professor Alexander Argelles is the expert on shadowing. Good luck with your language center in Kazakhstan. Maybe I'll visit one day. Is translating and uploading content for new for a new language a volunteer service, or do contributors receive some kind of payment? First of all, any content that's uploaded has to be free of copyright. This is from Aaron. Has to be free of copyright. If we find anything that's not free of copyright, we have to remove it. But many people have spoken to their spouse, friends, whatever, talked about different things, or recorded stuff about history, or there's a whole range of things, and we would love to get more of it. There is a very small level of, I don't, you know what? I think there is some compensation. We used to have a system where we would compensate points of people that didn't use them within a 3-month period as a means of generating some revenue for people who provided us with content. Not everybody liked that system, so we decided to discontinue it. I don't know the immediate answer, but it's not a lot. Most people who upload content do it in a spirit of helping others. It can be, for example, a language school that puts up some content and then has a link to their language school. So they're putting up 5-10 lessons in order to attract people to their language school, or some other language system. Different reasons why people upload. But I don't think the revenue from it, although there are people who have put up so much content in Russian, for example, or German, that they do get several $100s a month from this content. It's described somewhere in the site. Maybe if you were to send an email to eric@LingQ.com, he could give you a more detailed explanation. I don't really know much more than that. Did you have other jobs than diplomacy before retirement? From Vincent. Well, I left the diplomatic service after 7 years. I worked for 2 different lumber exporting companies based in Vancouver. In other words, the companies were based in Vancouver. I was in Tokyo. Then I went back to Vancouver and worked for this company in Vancouver. And then I set up my own lumber company in 1987, basically taking advantage of my knowledge of the products that were needed in Japan, my knowledge of the of contacts that I had in Japan, and I still have that company. And that has been my major activity, has been my involvement with the lumber industry. Okay. Как часто заходит слова, когда читаешь? Okay. Заходить. Again, I'm going to work on my Russian when I get to Ukraine. It's different. The question is, how often do you go to a dictionary when you're reading? If I'm not reading online, I don't use a dictionary. I can leave 5-10% of the words. If I'm reading in Polish and I don't know the words, I just leave it. I'm not going to bother looking it up in a dictionary. It's too time consuming and I forget right away. If I'm reading on Link, every word that I don't know, I look it up. If I'm not sure, I look it up. And when I'm reading on Link, I have blue words that I have never seen before that I might look up. I have yellow words that I have seen before and have already forgotten, and so I will also look at them. But how many that amounts to, it depends on how many new words there are in the text. I hope that answers your question. Okay, I'm a huge fan of Jared. Is it normal to feel discouraged when you don't perceive progression? Is it normal not to hear everything you hear? Okay, it is normal to be discouraged because we feel we aren't making as much progress as we would like. That is absolutely normal. There are times when I say, geez, I've been at this Arabic and I still can't understand it. And I still can't say what I want to say. So that's very, very common. That's where I think we need to remember, like in Arabic, I say, oh, geez, I can't understand. But then I look at, if I bring in a new article from Al Jazeera, there's lots of new words, but there's also a lot of words that I know. So I may think I'm not making progress, but I'm making progress. And I had a conversation with the tutor whose name showed up, I can't remember, Abdulaziz or something. And he agreed, I have improved a lot. Like I'm speaking a lot better. So generally we are progressing faster than we think, but not as fast as we would like. We have unrealistic expectations. And it is also normal not to understand everything we listen to. Listening comprehension is the most important skill. because, you know, if I feel uncomfortable engaging with a native speaker, it's not because I can't say what I want to say. It's because I can't understand what they're saying. And so that's why LingQ is based on the idea that you need to do a lot of listening and then reviewing what you've listened to, because you want to build up that listening comprehension. But yes, it's perfectly normal not to understand, especially say movies, television programs, all of that kind of stuff. Or if you're in a conversation with 3 or 4 other speakers, they're not necessarily directly talking to you, it's more difficult, always. Rebecca here, when you have lessons with your tutors, do you have a set topic to discuss, or do you simply chat about your daily activities? We have no set topic. The good tutors are able to bring you out. So, you know, Rana in Persian, it always starts with, you know, Che Khabar, Khabar Nist, you know, what's new? Nothing much. And then, okay, so then I said, you know, we had this Jashn Tavalot, Zanam, you know, my wife had her birthday party, and we talked about that, and my sons came to visit and stuff. And then she'll start talking about other subjects. She might ask me about what motivates me to learn languages. We might talk about, well, I had another Persian tutor who said, oh, we have been talking about politics. And she says, now let's talk a little bit about daily life. What do you like to eat? In other words, I think it's up to the tutor to keep the conversation going. The learner is already under a certain amount of pressure trying to speak the language. So the tutor comes up with subjects, and the good tutors are very patient when you're struggling. They don't quickly give you the English. They let you struggle. They say it in different words. And the hour goes by very quickly. But we don't have predetermined. When I started in Persian and Arabic, when I couldn't say anything, and when I was having so much trouble reading, we would read online. Like I would share my screen and I would read. And then we would discuss, say, the mini story that I had read. This was particularly useful in Persian because we don't have text-to-speech for Persian. We only have text-to-speech for Arabic. But even for Arabic, the text-to-speech is not very reliable. So to get me going in the early stages, I did a fair amount of reading online. But now I'm progressed to the point where I no longer want to do that. I just want to talk. Okay? I am a native Persian speaker, and I am learning German for about a month. My level in English is something around B2. Is it better for me to learn German from English sources or Persian sources? I would do both, because there's obviously a lot more English sources than Persian sources. I'm assuming, I just don't know, but I'm assuming. But I would use a bit of both, but I would certainly use English. No harm done. And it would make you can then access more material. I set my dictionary language here to English, but I have this 2 sort of other languages that I use are Russian and Korean, simply to kind of see what the translation is in those other languages. Hey, Steve, how did you practice writing in Chinese by hand in context? I kept a diary for a few months, but was looking for suggestions. Yeah, I mean, I was taking a course. The government was paying for me to learn Chinese. We had to write. We were given questions. We had to write. We had assignments. We had to translate. So I didn't, you know, it wasn't like, I think it would be difficult. I find this diary stuff is very difficult to maintain something like that. If you're given an assignment, translate this into that, then you do it. Nothing prevents you from translating stuff as well. How's my language learning family doing today? Fine. To what extent it's good to have a language tutor? I think language tutors are good. Language tutors are good. They are a source of motivation, guidance. You want to do well for your tutor. You want to improve. And they're a source of content, because after every discussion with my tutor, I get a detailed report of all the words and phrases that I struggle to use. And very often they record it for me. So it becomes a language, it becomes a lesson. And then I can review them going back 6 months, remembering our conversations and reviewing the words that I struggle to use. So I think language tutors are great. You don't have to do it every day. Twice a week is fine. Okay, where are we now? I studied English for 2 years. Yesterday I started studying LingQ and I have 5,000 words now. Probably I know more than 15,000 words. Should I start to practice to speak? Yeah, it's always a good thing. I would say you get a tutor at LingQ and start once a week. And then if you want, increase it to twice a week. Because speaking is important. Like, let's not, I emphasize input-based learning to build up your potential in the language, build up your vocabulary, your comprehension, your sense of the language, your familiarity with the structure, but eventually you got to speak. And in order to activate that, you have to speak a lot. So I would start speaking. Like with Persian, I started speaking quite early. The same with Greek. I'm starting to speak much earlier now because I have the mini stories that give me some momentum. How many hours have you put into Farsi in the past 3 months? Okay. I will, again, share my screen for a sec here. And start screen share. And I will give you an answer. So if I go here, and this is something that you can all do. Whoops. What did I do here? So go to your profile. And in the last 3 months, if I look at, for example, listening. So I have listened 60 hours, but my daily is declining somewhat because I'm, of course, doing it in combination with Arabic. So if I looked at my Arabic here, and if I go to my profile, and if I look at my last 3 months, and if I look at my listening, so I've been listening to more Farsi, so 42 hours, but it has picked up a little bit recently. So yeah, I mean, I'm doing 2 languages, and combined it's about 100 hours over the last 3 months. If I look at, let's see, let's get back to Farsi because that's what you were asking. Persian. If I look at my, where are we here? Profile. If I go again to the last 3 months, and if I look, so this is the known words total, but if I look at links created, which is another activity. Again, I guess I'm doing less, but still it's 3,700. I mean, it's difficult to say. How much time do I put in? I think I put in, I put in 2 hours a day. So 3.5 days of Arabic, 3.5 days of Persian. Most of that is listening. Maybe say an hour plus is listening and another hour or so is reading and reviewing on LingQ. My teacher has been emphasizing learning the script. Yeah, I would agree with her. First of all, let me tell you, Bella and the Sky, that Persian is a lot easier than Arabic. So that is, also, I don't just use LingQ. I also bought some books. I bought, I'm not sure which I have, Colloquial maybe, and Living Language. Because I think it's nice to study the same stuff in 2 or 3 different ways. But it is, I think you got to learn the script. Big problem with a lot of books is the script is so small. Arabic, Farsi, the same. They give you these books where it's so small. It's, for a new script, difficult script, it's impossible. Too small. So I really enjoy reading on LingQ because I can make the font as large as I want. One thing that's very useful, well, no, unfortunately, we can't do that in Persian because we don't have text-to-speech. But for Arabic, I would use my dictation function in my flashcards and then type in Arabic. I'd hear the thing in text-to-speech and type. And so you're kind of getting, because it takes a while to get used to those, the Arabic script, which is what is used in Persian. It was so difficult, there's 4 different forms, depending on whether it's at the beginning, the middle, at the end, and standalone, and I thought I'd never learn this script, but it's like everything else in language learning that at first seems so difficult. We eventually get used to it. The brain gets used to it. But I think if you're going to learn Farsi and you're going to be able to, you're going to want to access reading material. You're going to, if you walk by a grocery store, you want to be able to read what's written there. It's part of learning the language. I would definitely emphasize reading, but do the mini stories at Link. There is simple stories. The translation in English is available. The audio is available. Listen to them over and over again. You listen to them often enough. When I started on my Persian mini stories, which is where I essentially started in the language, like it seemed to me impossible. First of all, there's no text to speech compared to Arabic. It's much more difficult. And now they're just like, but I've listened to them 30, 40 times. So yeah, I would get with it. Okay. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Now, thank you for your content yourself. Stephen Krashen inspired me. Now that I've added compliment to my Japanese studies, my results have skyrocketed. Thank you, RE3IRTH. I mean, comprehensible input just works. The grammar explanations, the Anki, there's a lot of stuff on the fringes that can help, or we're never quite sure how much is helping, but the comprehensible input works and it's more interesting. Takes a little while to get some traction where you can actually start to comprehend, but it works. Wow, Link looks, thanks for answering my questions. I need to do these mini stories. Yes, Bella, you need to get on the mini stories. I could show you my statistics, Bella, of how often I have listened to them. In fact, you know what? I'll just take a second here to do that. Let's just go here and start screen share and present to everyone. So one of the really useful things, let's go to my lessons here. And you know what? I always study on my iPad. And here we are. So I'm used to doing. This is the other thing. You know, any lesson that you study, you want to add it to your playlist, because the playlist is across all platforms. So I have my playlist on my own. I have my playlist on my iPad. I have my playlist on. I have an Nano. Or an iPod Touch, rather. Now, I have removed, we can only keep 100 items in our playlist, which is an item of some discussion, and we're trying to improve that. So if I've heard story 16 times, I can assure you that story 1, I've heard it 40. It's just that after a while, you don't need to listen as often, same material. But, you know, 18 times, 9 times, as you can see, this tells you how many times I've listened to these various stories. And getting towards the more recent ones. But here, for example, Rana, I've listened to my, you know, recording of our lesson 5 times. And now who's my, you know, 9 times, 7 times. So here, and now these are more difficult. Like here's something from a, by the way, the resource called Persian Online material. And so here I've only listened to once because they're a little bit difficult. Blah, blah, blah. So anyway, there you have it. Just to let you know that the playlists are key, and that you need to listen a lot at the beginning, and then you don't listen quite as often. Is it possible? Where is it? 50 minutes of Pimsleur a day and 20 lessons on italki. Yes, 20. The thing about italki is, or any kind of an online tutor situation, you know, it's relatively expensive, and you're not going to learn from your tutor. The tutor is one portion of it, and I think once, twice a week is plenty initially, because you have to put so much effort into your listening and reading and building up your vocabulary, and then you can get more and more benefit from your online discussions with your tutor. Okay, is it possible to reach B1 Chinese in 3 months with hard work? Yes, but that's like full time. I did that. That's definitely possible. If I were to hire a translator to do the mini stories in Urdu, would LingQ accept Urdu as a beta language? And what would you recommend be a fair price for translation and audio? Send me an email, steve@LingQ. I think we have been paying $4 a lesson, translated and recorded. but I don't know for sure. So please send me an email. We can follow up. Vitania Zlova, my z wami spilkovalis. Okay, and look forward. I'm going to be in Lviv, last week of May, and would love to see you there. Okay, what should I major in college if I love learning languages? Well, pick two languages that you really like, and go for them. Hello, Steve. I used to use the SRS system as my vocabulary grew, so did my cards. I was overwhelmed. It was overwhelming. Ever since I found LingQ, I rarely use the SRS system. Yeah, I mean, that's been my experience. You know, I mean, in Czech, I've got 60,000 words. You know, even in Romanian, 20,000, Korean, 40,000, even in Arabic, 8,000. How am I going to find the time to review so many words while learning new words? I just don't see it. But everyone does what they like to do. How do you find literature that's relevant for you? I hope to find a really exciting book in target language and get some motivation, but there's so many and my skills aren't perfect at all. So first of all, I would need to know what the language is. You know, for example, for me, literature is difficult. In learning Russian, I went to literature early because in Russian, there's so many excellent audiobooks available for the literature of the 19th century. The literature of the 19th century is available free of charge. So I was able to import those ebooks into LingQ. I separately listened to the audiobook. And I mean, I can remember hours and hours and hours of cross-country skiing, you know, listening to whatever, Turgenev, Atsi Idioti, which is one of my favorites. And so that was what I did. You got to look for it. You know, in the case of Polish, I was able to find, I went to, there's a website called audioteka.pl, which has a lot of audiobooks. I always look for the corresponding audiobook and ebook, so I can import the ebook into LingQ and listen to the audiobook. You got to Google. Sometimes it's easy to begin by doing a book in translation. So I would go to, if I don't know how to say that in the language, target language, I go to Google translate it, Google it, find an ebook, audiobook, import the ebook into LingQ, listen to the audiobook. Okay, I want to start learning Russian this summer. What and how do you recommend me to start off? You know what my answer is going to be. Go to LingQ. There's lots of material in our library. Certainly, I would do the mini stories. Get yourself to a certain level, and then you go off in those areas that you're interested in. And Russian is one of the languages for which there's lots of resources online, and you can import some of those into LingQ. I got Alaska. How can I persuade my friend to use LingQ? Because he always sticks to the antiquated methods from school. It's kind of a no-brainer to use LingQ nowadays because it works. Giovanni, the problem is it's so difficult to persuade people to use LingQ. You know, any LingQ member that persuades a friend to join LingQ gets 20%. Like if that member becomes a paying member, then you get, I think it's 20% for recommending that person. And so many members do try to persuade their friends to join LingQ. But it's difficult. People are stuck in their ways. And LingQ is a little bit overwhelming sometimes. We have so many functions. A lot of people find that overwhelming. I find the functions useful, but a lot of people find it confusing. A lot of people want to have chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. It's the way they've been sort of taught. This is how languages are learned. So it's difficult. It's difficult, but try to persuade them. That's all I can say. Okay. Vous avez de mauvaises expériences en essayant de pratiquer la langue. Okay, so how do we stay motivated when we have bad experiences in trying to use the language? You know, when you are using the language with a native speaker is not your teacher. The native speaker is not obligated to be nice to you, to be patient with you, to reply to you in the language you're trying to use, none of that. So you shouldn't have any expectations of how the native speaker is going to react when you use the language. Therefore, I focus mostly on building up my competence in the language. I derive tremendous satisfaction from being able to understand the language. And when I go to use it, sometimes I do well, sometimes I don't do well, sometimes the person is encouraging, sometimes the person is not encouraging. It doesn't matter to me. I continue to work on my enjoyment of the language, comprehension of the language, and in doing that, I eventually get better and better. And as I get better, I have more and more positive experiences with the language. I have been learning French for 123 days. Confidence is my issue. I'm reading Harry Potter in French, but with harder text can know all the words, but not be able to understand a sentence. Yeah, so it takes a while for the brain to get used to it. Sometimes you understand all the words, but the brain is not yet able to put it together as a complete meaning. Partly you're translating into your own language. All of this is just a matter of learning is a matter of getting used to something. It's a getting used to process. And so only more exposure and more listening and more reading. And don't just read, because you get a different sense of the meaning when you listen. Because when you're reading, you're sub-vocalizing and you're trying to give it a certain rhythm and stuff, which influences the meaning. But when you hear it, it's different. So make sure you combine listening and reading and keep going. Okay, I have 2 hours a day and I'm beginner in the language, so I listen more, read more. You do both. You listen, you don't understand, you read, you look at the words, you understand a bit better, you listen again, you don't understand. That's why if I had been able to show you how often I listen to the first mini stories in Persian or Arabic, it's like 40 times, okay? So you need both. You need to get a sense of the language, the rhythm of the language, but then you need to look up the words to make sense of it. You need to do both. I want to ask you, how do you maintain so many languages and don't you mix some words up? Yeah, I do mix words up. And the languages do slip, but they don't slip that much. It's all there somewhere. And research shows that when you forget something and then retrieve it and relearn it, you eventually learn it better. So it doesn't bother me. Yes. And this is Mark. Say hello, Mark.
Hi, everybody.
Mark runs LingQ. Any complaints you have about LingQ? Where are our t-shirts? Why can't we have more?
Steve.
Yes. Why can't we have more items in our playlist? Any other complaints? He the boss. Okay.
We should get t-shirts.
Yes.
Or something.
All right. Okay. You kind of guess on. This is also Mark's room while he's here. So, and we got to run here. What do we got here? I am reading. Okay. Try importing into LingQ or try reading Camus on LingQ. So because the copyright's open. L'étranger. Yes, absolutely. Hi, Steve. Any recommendations for books about language acquisition? Stephen Krashen. Krashen. Google, find his website. Lots of free stuff. And he is the best. And he's got books that are not too big. Like when I started on LingQ, I went to bookstores in London, Stockholm, Vienna, everywhere to find stuff about language acquisition. Big, thick books. It's mostly irrelevant. Krashen in 100 pages tells you all you need to know about language acquisition. Krashen, Stephen Krashen. I'm talking to a native speaker. How do you use new vocabulary and grammar while speaking? I want to enjoy my conversations, so if they don't understand me, I start speaking very basic again. Okay. You know, when I speak, I just focus on communicating. But if a word comes into my brain and I'm entirely sure what it means, I just use it. Like, go with it. Go for it. Take a chance. Take a chance with your structures. Make a mistake. It doesn't matter. But the function is on communicating. So by listening, and I got certain phrases running in my brain, and all of a sudden they pop into my brain while I'm speaking, I just use them. Right or wrong, I just use them. I'm learning French and Spanish at the same time, but I've been learning French for 4 months. So do you think I can manage not to confuse them? Because you learn Arabic and Farsi at the same time. Well, yeah, French and Spanish, of course, are related languages. There's 20, 30% Arabic words in Farsi or Persian. And so there are many times when I'm not sure if this is an Arabic word or a Persian word. Similarly, when I speak Slavic languages, at times I'm not sure if this is a Ukrainian word or a Russian word or a Polish word. So there's a certain element of confusion, but in the long run, it's not a problem. Learning those 2 languages, in a sense, helps. It's interesting to see 2 related languages, how they are different. And when you switch from the one to the other, you're going to confuse them a bit. But when you then, so that's, for example, why I'm doing 3.5 days of Persian, 3.5 days of Arabic. Because if I were going to do them the same language in the same day, I think I would get even more confused. But in my, changeover day, I'm more likely to make mistakes. So, for example, I like to give myself 1 day. Say if I switch from Arabic to Persian on I start in on Persian on a Wednesday, I won't have my online session till Thursday, so that I at least have some chance to kind of wash out the Arabic and get the Persian in place. But you do make mistakes. Not a big deal. I want to speak using the new things I learned, but when communicating gets different, I start saying things I usually say because I want to. Okay, yeah, and so that's part of why you shouldn't do too much talking online, because the amount of vocabulary you will use in an online discussion with a tutor at an early stage is very, very limited. Whereas when you are listening and reading, you're expanding your vocabulary. When you're speaking, you're using vocabulary that you're quite confident about, and that's going to be a much more limited range. Yeah, I mean, these deliberate attempts to speak, use new words every day. I mean, I don't know if these are things that you can actually maintain. So when I speak, I communicate, we talk about something. I find myself, sometimes I surprise myself, I use a new word. If not, it's still a very good practice at speaking. I often have to ask the tutor, how do you say this? How do you say that? I get all of that in my report, which then I study again. So, I think one can worry too much about these things. Cruz, I spoke my rehearsed, prepared lines to Chinese people. My tones were all flat and wrong. They said that our tones are a vast Chinese conspiracy. Okay, that's not true. People, we all like to speak as well as we can. And when a foreigner, non-Chinese native speaker, speaks with relatively good tones, people are much more appreciative than if they speak with poor tones. Tones are something that improves over time, but it's certainly not a conspiracy. It's important. It's like accurate grammar. Does learning a second language increase first language skills? Definitely. Every language you learn increases your skills in all of the languages. You have a broader sense of language, of how to express things. Okay, Yedos, you know what? I just have, I'm so busy. I can't, one day maybe we'll have a conversation on Skype, but I'm going to decline right now. Can you learn two languages at the same, learn one language to fluency and then the other to intermediate level and move on to another language? You do what you want. You do what you want. The main thing is to enjoy it. I can't say, Okay, I would say that this is Panari looking for an Iraqi Arabic online tutor. I would suspect that if you went to italki, you'll find one. Otherwise, you Google Iraqi Arabic online and you'll find one. Do you sometimes think of a word like car in 10 different languages for the fun of it? No, I can't say I've done that. Do you know that Arabic has 12,300,000 words? I'm proud. Okay, thank you for answering my questions. Steve, I look forward to your next live sessions. How do we get the discount for recommending someone to LingQ? How does that work, Mark?
Go to the referrals tab under settings.
Go, there's so much stuff I don't know. There again, go to the referrals tab under settings. We very much would like you to recommend LingQ, and you do get a referral compensation. So under settings, there is a referrals tab. We encourage you to recommend LingQ to your friends.
Under the profile, like on your profile image on the web.
Should I go and share screen and show that?
Ah, it's okay.
No, it's okay. Anyway,
click on your little profile image in the top right corner.
Okay, click on the profile image, and under that, you'll find the referrals tab. I do have a French audiobook for Harry Potter, so we'll keep listening to it all. Yeah. And absolutely, like listening is key. The biggest thing I find when people ask me to review their profile at LingQ, people don't listen enough. You've got to listen tons. For Italian, I listen to I Promessi Sposi, which even the Italians don't read. I got an audiobook of I Promessi Sposi. I listen to Pinocchio in Italian. I've listened to, so much. Listening is the number one thing that I do to learn languages. And then I follow up by reading to understand what was there. Daniel says, hi, Mark. Tell us, please, what's your favorite language besides English? English is not my favorite language, and I don't have a favorite language. Говорите на русском. Но я могу говорить, но не так свободно, как я хотел бы. Is it possible to start reading Jules Verne novel after 6 months of learning French? Yes. And Jules Verne is free of copyright. So I would bring it, I would get the audiobook, and I would bring the e-text into LingQ and learn all the words and phrases. Ontem conversei con una haitiana español, ella dice que tenía un sotaque, sabe que gusté mucho porque no hice un curso de español y so bien. Yeah, I mean, Pedro said he had a conversation in Spanish, and she thought he spoke well because he's just been listening and reading. Absolutely, like languages as similar as Spanish and Portuguese, not a problem. Even Romanian, you can learn it very quickly if you know Italian. Do you have bestimmte days to learn certain languages? No, only right now because I'm doing this double-barreled Persian Farsi thing, at least Arabic Persian. But is it possible to reach a conversation level in Chinese in 3 months while doing college work? I don't know. Conversation in Chinese, takes longer. I'm speeding it up here because we got to get going here. I learned French before and it went fairly well. I'm currently learning European Portuguese, but it's sticking as well as French. Oh, your words escaped me. Oh, it's not sticking as well. Yeah. How can I improve this? More. European Portuguese is kind of difficult because I find it's more difficult to understand than Brazilian because they kind of chew their vowels, sort of. But there are tons of Portuguese podcasts. I listen to hundreds of hours of Radio Portugal, RTF, I think it's called, RTP, RTF. Google it, Radio Portugal podcast. What was it? Pessoal Transmissível, something like that. There's a whole series of interviews. And what I didn't have in those days with transcripts, but you can go to one of these automatic transcription sites like Vocalmatic, and you can, if you don't understand them, transcribe it. There's tons of European Portuguese podcasts out there. And if you can't find it, send me an email, steve@LingQ. Blah, blah, blah. I want to know what you think about learning English. For me, it is still difficult because of one word has many different meanings. I'm studying ESL in San Francisco. Well, yeah, every language has that. Every language has that. There is no secret. You just have to listen and read, and you'll start to get used to words. And especially if you learn words in context, it will be obvious to you because you'll know all the surrounding words, just what the specific meaning of that word is in this context. Do you think it's a good idea to major in a language, or is it a bad idea? It's not a good or a bad idea. The key is not what you study at school. The key is what you do outside of the classroom. Very important thing in learning Chinese is to know where you were at the beginning. Yeah, you should remind yourself how much you have improved. Do you have any pertinent thoughts on breaking through that perhaps mental barrier between intermediate level and a truly high level? I don't know if it's a mental barrier. It may be. But if you are confident that you can listen to literature audiobooks, news, really understand the language, then you'll have the confidence to just use the language. And even if you struggle, you'll understand so clearly what people are saying, and you'll eventually improve your ability to speak. So it's really more of the same, listening and reading. Have you ever heard of Tim Donner, who can speak 20 languages at 19 years old, and he speaks medicine? I've heard of him, and I think he's wonderful. I intend to learn Chinese, but I keep hearing that it's the most difficult language in the world. From your experience, is that claim true? No, Chinese is actually very easy. It has a very straightforward grammar. It's easy to accumulate vocabulary. And the two big obstacles are the characters, which are a lot of work, time, and of course the tones, which you gradually get used to, but it is not difficult. I find the grammar in Slavic languages more difficult. I'm finding Arabic, in terms of the structure of the language, more difficult. Do you think having ambitious goals like will make you learn a language faster because you're shooting for the stars? That has not been my experience. I think language learning is not a sort of a sprint. It's a long distance run, one that we enjoy, and I'm never in a hurry. So we have different approaches. Japanese word order makes longer sentences hard to understand. Yes, and to some extent that's true in German. And that's another reason why you need to do a lot of listening and reading in order to get used to it. And I really have to run now. So thank you, everyone. And I'm on my way here. Bye for now.